All right, we're live. We're there. Hi. How's it going? Hope it's going pretty well for you. I keep forgetting it's the left side of the thing. I'm always forgetting that. But yes, you're going to hear barks. You're going to hear dogs. It is a lovely Independence Day. Right? But not a whole lot for the podcast. It's like unique and whatnot. But sliding yourself over. I can slide you over on my own settings. Let me do that thing too. Yeah. Yeah, I have. So okay, Chris. What you have to realize is when I have the home set up, because it's amazing. I give Streamlabs like a really positive shout out here. So as soon as I logged into Streamlabs under our setup, I forgot. I'm hearing my duplicate from LinkedIn. Luckily, it's just coming into my headphones. It's no big deal. Right. Is it me or was that you? Is it coming from your mic?
Yeah, that was an audio check on my end.
Okay. I feel better now. I was like, dang it, I didn't mute something I'm supposed to mute. Oh, crap. It's all good. But at the house, the way I have it set up is I have the two cameras, so one faces me from this direction, right? So that you can see me. And then I have the other one that is literally set up to where I'm just ever so slightly in the frame of the camera on one edge of the screen. So that when I import and slide it over into Streamlabs like it is right now, it's slid over in such a way that it's just got the edge of the frame for me, so that we're kind of blocked with our on-screen presence. It's just kind of cool. It works. It actually works pretty well, But it imported everything over, and I keep like wanting to go get over in the middle of the frame, thinking I should be, but in reality, I just need to park my happy little ass right here and be happy. Sometimes I just got to remember it's still set up for me to be like over on the left-hand side of the frame. By the way, you love my watch tan line? Oh, can you see the watch tan line in yours?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good little watch tan line. We're there. It's pretty hilarious. Okay, so you have no watch tan line.
Yeah.
Mine's pretty bad though, but something's wrong with my Apple Watch, so I might have to get a new one. We'll see. Say all that though, let's pull up the fun topic of discussion for today. We'll start with shedding a tear for high-end desktop, as it seems that it might be gone. It might be gone, yes. And it's always that. There's always that caveat. In a way, it's not really gone. It's gone, but let me rephrase it. I don't want to say, the old saying used to be gone but not forgotten. Realistically, it's forgotten but not gone.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what AMD and Intel want you to think. They want you to think that it's a forgotten, like it's gone. They want you to think it's gone, but it's really not. It's just being forgotten about. Mainly because, and we have AMD to thank for this, but they kind of went back over the years and they've given us more and more and more to push on our machines, And so it's kind of one of those things where since they gave us more and more and more, and we appreciate that, we also have to recognize that in giving us more and more and more, they, in the consumer space, they had to, the lines really blur. There's rumors out there though, Chris, that X6790, whatever it is, 7670 or 77, whatever it is for the Zen 4 is basically the high-end Zen 4 boards are going to be very, very, what's the term I'm thinking of, Chris? They're going to be very, very HEDT-like. So, I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years, you see consumer grade upper end chips that have, 32 PCI Express lanes. But realistically, I mean, as we keep going, oh, that's something I got to find for us to talk about because I saw it the other day. PCI Express 7.0.
Saw that.
Yeah, we're basically talking about with 7.0. We're gonna, 16 lanes of 7.0 is more than enough bandwidth for any I/O you'd ever want. So, I mean, like I said, it's forgotten, but it's not really gone. It's realistically, we're finally breaking down the lines between what's necessary for a workstation, and then consumer hardware doesn't really need high-end desktop specs. And truth of the matter is, that's probably pretty accurate. I don't know about you, but most of your customers that are gaming don't really need 3 graphics cards or more than one. Really, right now they don't need more than 1 graphics card.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly fine in my opinion. And I kind of tend to think about it this way: is that with USB specs kind of getting to be an opinion. So like the DMI lanes. Remember the DMI lanes we talked about a while back, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
So DMI lanes increasing, that means that USB has more bandwidth now. I mean, it's, all of the amount of, who do we know that uses a lot of SATA drives anymore? Nobody. So, I mean, if you're not really using SATA drives that much, sorry, I'm going to adjust my image up so y'all can enjoy the view of the beach a little more. Ooh, maybe not. That made me a little too dark. Sorry.
That's real white. Dog.
Yeah. Trying to. Oh, what? You saw the dog in the background?
Yep.
Yes, that's Ella. Ella, come here. You want to say hello to the people? You want to say hello to the people?
Hello.
Yeah, you say hello to the people.
No.
She doesn't know what to think. She's confused. She definitely has no idea where to look. So you gotta look over there. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, Why? Why were we talking about Peter? Yes. You're going to hear barks. You're going to hear dogs. So, tis what it is, though.
Say what?
It said it is what it is, though. Going back over to the other article. Going back to the article, sorry. I jumped on this. My bad. I wanted to jump back so I could move something so I could make a little note for it. So I go back over to Tom's hardware and I scroll down a little ways, and we have pricing though for Threadripper Pro, and that's kind of painful. Not exactly excited to see it, but it is manageable, especially for corporate. You have to think about this though. Who is Threadripper Pro for? It's for corporations and for, it really isn't for the average Joe Blow at the, corner drug market or so on. Threadripper Pro realistically is exactly for who we're talking to. It's for those folks that are going to use it for, a good example being
Epic Games.
Yeah, not to play games. No, I mean it's for people that are going to be doing professional workloads. Honestly, I could see the average Joe Blow off the street wanting to buy like the 24 or the 32 core version for doing like streaming setups and live streaming their gaming and stuff like that, maybe. And I say that because I've been looking at the. I got to show you this. I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it. So. And this is an Ice Lake CPU, ladies and gentlemen. Keep that in mind. But take a look at how pegged this thing is. See it, Chris? Right, you might not be able to see it yet. Give it a second when it finally populates to the actual stream. Um, I'm hitting this thing pretty dang hard. So
Kind of small.
yeah, I know. Well, you look at the graph.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Up there.
and this is a Tiger Lake CPU. This is a Tiger Lake 8 core. It's Tiger Lake H. It's the Core i9 11, whatever the crap you want to call it, 50 something. Basically my point being that's a quality CPU and it's pegging.
That's what I got.
Oh wow, my God, that was great, Chris. You just showed it to me, and the background blur stayed in there. It was awesome. You kind of have to hold it in front of your body, yeah. There you go. There you go. It's not the greatest quality, I'll go ahead and tell you, because it struggles with the stream right now. But let's hold out on talking too much about it. But what we can do is I do want you to talk about that, so talk about why you bought that laptop for a second. I'm gonna take us back to the regular main screen. Talk about why you bought the laptop and what you're doing with it, because I think that's the key. Like when we talk to people and we're trying to explain to them, like, you don't always need a Core i9 or you don't always need a Core i7. I mean, a lot of times you just need something to make your workflow work. And so if you can, give an idea, go ahead real quick.
So I bought this laptop to be able to somewhat run my business while I'm not at home. I can't run it on my phone. It's a phone. Like I can take calls and whatnot, but I can't, really process emails and build quotes and send invoices and everything. It's not, meant for really heavy duty work, but at like 1 or 2 pounds, it's a Tiger Lake i7. I could have gotten the i5, but I wanted the i7. I just did. But all that it's going to be doing is 2 to 6 tabs in Chrome to run the business, and for a couple hours a day. The big thing was the 12 to 16 hours of active battery life. So that's 12 to 16 hours of like active use, not like exporting. Not exporting because it's not built for that.
What CPU was it again?
It is. Oh heck. Actually, let me turn it on.
Is it the 1195 G7?
Give us a second.
i7 or is it an i5?
i7. And it's on.
Oh my God, that's so fast, too.
That quick.
Heck, okay, granted, it's Tiger Lake, and it comes on pretty quick, but sometimes it feels a little bit slower sometimes.
So we have a 1165 G7.
Okay, I'm pulling the specs up so I can show it, buddy. Because, like I said, I think the point of what we're talking about here is kind of important. So it's an 1165 G7. So it's just a quad core. Just a quad core.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point that a lot of people miss. It does have Iris Xe graphics, which is kind of nice. I honestly bet with 96 execution units, I'd imagine you probably could play Battlefield on that.
It's got
not like at max settings, obviously, but like, how much RAM did you have put in it?
It's 16 gigs.
Okay, I mean, which is
fine.
I
don't need 32. It has a.
But you can upgrade it to 32 if you ever wanted to.
Yeah, it's got a 500 gig Gen 4 NVMe.
And so here's the point. The point that I was trying to make to get back to this bottleneck down is you've got a lot of people out there that talk to us, talk to you, talk to me, they go, well, I mean, I want the best specs I can get. Well, I have a thin and light laptop that I use for work that feels like garbage sometimes, but I also realize that it is more than enough to do the things I do. The only thing that holds it back is the amount of RAM that it has. It has 8 gigs of RAM versus that 16, and I think people tend to miss the point a lot of times of what Windows takes up. I mean, it cracks me up. So I have 2 desktops at home. One has 256 gigs. The other has 256 gigs. And then I've got a third that's a terabyte of RAM. All 3 of them, when I load them up, they load up fairly quickly to Windows. But when I load them up, if you look in Windows and look at how much Windows is using just with nothing else running in the background, you're probably looking somewhere between 8 and 12 gigs of RAM. Now, it doesn't take that much to run it, but it takes that much at the very least to get it started up. So if you've got a laptop these days and you're trying to run Windows 10 or Windows 11 and you're not putting 16 gigs of RAM in there, you're kind of crippling yourselves to have a slow experience. Especially if you're in a mid-sized corporation or large corporation or even a small corporation that is running their own custom version of Windows 10 or 11 Enterprise, where you try to put in your own things like that alone. Like I said, an 8 gig, like, it's bad when I say it this way, but like I turn the machine on, I open up as it's trying to just load up and because the thing is, Windows knows it can compress some stuff once it's open. It does. It will compress it down, but it'll take 10 to 15 minutes to figure it out from a CPU perspective how to compress it to what it needs. So you've got to boot it up and wait 15 to 20 minutes before you can really do anything because it's eating up 85 to 95% of RAM. So any application you open up immediately goes into that buffer zone where it has to be offloaded to disk, which just makes things even slower. Like I said, I would say the thing to think about is that you can do this all with and it's kind of why I didn't want to have a rundown. I wanted to just kind of talk about your experience with that. So you've got 16 gigs of RAM. We just saw you boot it up in like 2.5 seconds. Okay, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Call it 5.
Yeah, and it's going to go back to hibernate in probably a couple minutes, and I haven't plugged it in like a week, I think, and it's still at like 87%.
So I mean, think about it this way: it's like, okay, what's another device that everybody thinks about like that?
A Chromebook.
Or there's another one, but go to the professional realm. That's schooling.
Surface.
Yes, and iPads.
Yeah. Okay.
iPads. I'm using this as a segue for it. So because iPad Pros are becoming far more popular, so are Surfaces. I know there's some folks at our company that are running a pilot program on iPads themselves, or not on iPads, on Surfaces themselves, and they're like, "Oh man, we love how responsive it is. We love all these things about it." I'm like, "Yeah, it's because you're getting a cut down version of Windows. You're not getting some of the bloat that the Lenovo's and Dells will put on there for the world." Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, love my Dell machines, love Lenovo machines, love HP machines, love everything like that. But like, one of the perks to buying something from you, Chris, is exactly that. There's no bloat on it. So it will almost always boot faster.
One of the problems that I had with this thing, it also has a Thunderbolt 4 port.
That's nice.
Which I'm never going to use. But the one problem that I had with it was the amount of Acer software that was pre-installed. It took me about 5 minutes. 5 minutes in a control panel, taking it all off. It only took 5 minutes.
Which isn't bad. And realistically, if you ever needed to, you could go back to a clean version of Windows and that would have run it anyways. But at the same time, like that's still better than most. Only 5 minutes to clear out what I would like to call the garbage.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
It's about $850, I think. And that's
the thing. Like, that's an excellent price. And being that it's a quad core and it's got a good so going back down into the spec list of this thing for this machine, just looking right here, you've got 96 execution units which is like at 128, that's 1024. So that's going to be like 768 string cores. So theoretically, that's better than the newest, what do you call it? That 1630, that GTX 1630 they just launched.
Yeah,
Yes, I mean that's close to
that's like a
1650. It's close. I mean, it's not going to be a 1650, guys. Come on. Mainly, and the reason for it is so the only reason for somebody like yourself, Chris, if you were truly going to game on it, the only reason I'd recommend light game, lightly game. The only reason I'd ever recommend more than 16 gigs is if you've got something like that you want to lightly game on the road, and then you go for the 32. One, because 32 gigs isn't that much more expensive, or you could go buy that 32 gigs for yourself and put it in.
right.
But 32 gigs of RAM, because your integrated graphics are sharing the actual sharing the bus load. So you're sharing system memory, basically. Yeah, exactly. And so if you've only got 16 gigs of RAM, you got a program that loads up. It's basically you have like a 4 gig graphics card. Because you got 12 gigs to the system and then 4 gigs to the GPU. Not bad, but you could still think of it that way. Well, like I said, for something like that, dude, you could still play. What's the tower defense game that you play a lot of?
I can play balloons.
Yeah.
Super good on my little laptop.
Exactly. But that's my point, though, dude. You can use that for that exact reason. You can play balloons. You can play anything you want to. Anything most people would want to play, like lightweight.
Minecraft, TF2.
What's the other one I always think about too? Minecraft, TF2.
Counter-Strike.
Yep, would be able to play on just fine. Fortnite, just fine. All of your lightweight games, the games that you always see people stream a lot of, should have no problem being played on that.
Not Witcher.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to play The Witcher. You're probably not going to play Battlefield. You probably could play. Oh no, I bet it would run. I honestly think it would run. It would probably be slow. It probably would not run at. Well, what's the screen? That's the other thing I was going to ask you. What's your screen resolution?
Oh, a 1080p.
Which is perfect, exactly. So you could probably play Battlefield at low settings at 1080p. I mean, don't expect 120 frames per second or anything crazy like that. But once again, the goal of that laptop is to get you through your day-to-day tasks, like Word, Excel, Microsoft Office suites, Internet suites, most programs that run on Internet-based browsers.
When I'm not home. Yeah.
Yeah, things that would solve those problems. So, but that's huge though. People don't ever think about that kind of stuff. Next up, you kind of got down that list is, and the only way to make something like that a little better might be to add a discrete graphics card, but you don't really need it. It's not a necessity per se.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't super worry about it, honestly. Going back to the Threadripper conversation for just a second too. So they did. So talking about the HED thing, they do go and actually compare it to what's it called? This. Puget did some comparisons and some benchmarking.
Oh yeah.
Marking numbers.
That was really. I wish they did more stuff with engineering.
And you know why they didn't? I think it's because whoever was showing this stuff off was trying to show it off and compare it to, of the systems that they were trying to compare everything to were very, what do you want to call it? Similar specs. Like they have the 3375 here, sure, but I feel like the 3375 is fairly competitive with a 5975 at the very least.
I don't think that Puget has a engineering software expert on staff,
which kind of saddens me a little bit. But I mean, Nice. Okay, so they do have and the Tom's hardware thing does have a nice little note here. So, I mean, one of the other things that you get now with uh, Threadripper setups is you've now got the upgrade, update, if you want to call it that, to, hi Donald. You have the upgrade or the update. You can come in and say hello if you want. I just don't have it set where you can hear anything.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
How's it going?
But it's the, so you have the setup now with AM5, I think that's what they're calling it. Not the AM4 platform. The AM5 platform actually gets an extra pin out. So it's got more pins to push more power. So you're not kind of strapped by the power processor limit with the next gen Ryzen CPUs, you know, Chris? So realistically, what you're looking at is you're looking at a increase for them to where you're kind of, like I said, you're approaching those HEDT levels. And I mean, you know just as well as I do that, like, Intel hasn't launched an HEDT processor since 2019, and I have that thing. Now, it's still competitive with third gen Threadripper and Threadripper Pro. I don't think it's going to be as competitive with fifth gen or 5000 series Threadripper Pro, but it's only competitive because it has AVX 512. So let's talk about that for just a second too. So I'm gonna pull up something. I'm gonna jump off here so I'll pull it up real quick. But AVX 512. So what is, you know, for lack of a better word, what is AVX 512? Let's give that little bit of a conversational piece here. So it's a instruction set, right? It is a wide vector bus instruction set. So what does that mean when it comes to you or I doing something? Well, it's, you know, obviously it's something that has been around for a while. First and foremost, AVX 512 was introduced in Sandy Bridge. So that's like 2012. It was introduced at a time when Intel thought we don't need to go up in cores, and this is why. They figured, okay, with AVX2, when we build upon AVX2 and we go to AVX 512, the reason Intel kind of withdrew from the core increase market all along was they said, look, like your laptop you have now, that's all you really need for computing horsepower for most everyday workloads. So what we want to do is add an instruction set that's good for, and it even calls it out, things like scientific simulations, workloads, financial analytics, artificial intelligence, 3D modeling and analysis, audio, video, imaging processing, photography, data compression. It was a better instruction set than AVX2 because it was, you know, basically opening the bus for doing that kind of stuff. So why are we having this conversation? Because that's the reason that an 18-core Intel CPU can stay competitive with a 32-core AMD CPU. It's that way because, and it can and is competitive because of that. Because they developed this 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Actually, it would be 2012, would be 10 years ago this instruction set was launched. And so what happened? Well, while AMD was trying to develop their products out and make them bigger and better, they were not developing out into AVX 512 because they were like, we'll just wait. It's not a big deal, right? And so as we continued down that process, they figured, okay, well, eventually we'll get to the point where we'll just add more AVX 512 vector units, FMA units, sorry. Fuse, multiply, add units. Call it what it exactly is. And that would be able to increase the performance on a quad core or a 6 or 8 core setup. The problem is, what they didn't count on is that when you throw more cores at something, technically it's better. I mean, even with AVX2 as the max instruction set on it, it can be a lot more efficient. That was the key. Efficiency was the key at that point in time. They thought that the 512-bit vector bus would keep the efficiency high, and it didn't. It mainly because they couldn't shrink the node at the time when they said they were supposed to in 2018 to a 10 nanometer node, so they kind of dropped the ball there on efficiency. Now, though, you've got AMD coming in here, and we were always going to head down this chiplet path, this tile path, this whatever you want to call it path, because there's certain processes that don't need to be smaller than 14 nanometer or 10 nanometer. I mean, there's certain things that don't get more efficient as you reduce their size, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my favorite example to that is almost always and forever going to be I/O dies. Realistically, your I/O die is not going to add any performance as it gets smaller than 12, 10 nanometer, 14 nanometer. Your I/O stuff, I mean, yes, will the die physically have to be larger that you put it on? Sure. That die will physically be larger. But that doesn't mean that it's, a bad thing. It's just larger. So what about your GPU? Where does it benefit? Well, it's always going to benefit from the smallest node possible. Sometimes your CPU core processes don't really need to get down past a certain point. If you lose frequency to do that, it will affect the final outcome. So, I mean, the discussion that we're kind of having now is for those to kind of just join in and watching, it'll be on LinkedIn or be on YouTube. It's Chris got an excellent laptop that's great for general purpose use, but it follows the old Intel 4-8 setup. You don't need more than a quad-core 8-thread processor, right? And realistically, that's the truth when it comes to normal everyday applications. Matter of fact, I saw that part of that Puget article was talking about how the Core i9 12900K was actually as efficient or more efficient per se than the what was it? The 12. No, it was more efficient than some of those Threadripper Pro 5000 series chips.
Yeah, in certain workloads, yeah.
In certain Adobe workloads.
Yeah.
Specifically Adobe workloads. Well, why Adobe workloads? One, Adobe takes advantage of the iGPU a little bit. Okay, so you say that's a little bit of a boost. Yeah, it's not a huge boost, but it's a little bit. All right, well, think about it then on top of that. You lose frequency when you put more cores on something because you increase heat load. So there are always trade-offs. And it's like the law of diminishing returns that I always apply when talking about, okay, I want to buy a new processor for my group or for my team. I want to know the right thing to buy, right? So what do? I go and I start looking around and I'm like, all right, well, what's the thing that I should get? So as I look around, the things that I look around for, it's the trade-offs. That's what you always should be looking for, is the trade-offs. Because eventually you're going to find something. 64 cores sometimes might not be more efficient than 32 cores as a whole, because maybe some of your process needs a higher single thread output, and going 32 core or 64 cores means you get a much lower base clock, which can affect some programs. And I'm not saying that it slows them down massively, but it probably slows them down enough that it, and the extra cost of that 64 core CPU don't really justify it, right? But we can go back to that same thing with that chiplet and tile architecture. You're going to have a trade-off. You automatically have the trade-off there of everything has to be interconnected a certain way. AMD has the Infinity Fabric, Intel has EMIB, and the Foveros packaging types and stuff like that. I mean, that's where we're going. But why is it that Intel was so fast at gaming for the longest? Ring bus and then the ring mesh, which, for lack of a better word, was just copper traces inside of everything to tie everything together. And with ring bus and ring mesh, I mean, you could actually overclock the ring speed and improve performance like 15, 20%, and not even overclock the core frequency. Because once again, where do you get bottlenecks? Bandwidth, throughput. And so overclocking the ring bus architecture itself would allow you to faster transmit data to everything. So basically it meant that if your CPU was pegged at 100%, it was actually getting more data and that's what made that 100% actually faster. You know, so just 2 cents, little things to think about. But like I said, 4 cores, 8 threads. Obviously, for gaming and for computational workflows and for engineering analysis, it's never going to be enough. But companies have been trying to transition folks like you and I, Chris, off to cloud architectures for years for that. I mean, one of the few things that I've been looking into it more and more, Chris, and so I kind of want you to hear me talking this out loud because it's kind of funny. I've been trying to figure out ways to interconnect like 2 machines and have them share data fast, and use something like Intel's DPU solution, right? Their Intel and not Intel, NVIDIA's DPU solution, the Bluefield stuff that they bought from Mellanox. So I've been trying to have conversations to figure out how to make that work for 2 computers, and I'm like, how is it that you make 2 computers, for lack of a better word, with 2 CPUs running the same exact architecture? I'm like, how did people ever do that? Like, for that cloud architecture, how do you make your own personal cloud in that sense? It's the struggle I run with. It's the struggle I've tried to figure out. Is how do I figure that kind of stuff out? Haven't got there yet. Haven't figured it out yet. Working on it still. Pretty dumb myself, not gonna lie. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but that's the kind of stuff that I try to understand. Like, I am not a network architect. I'm not a cybersecurity analyst. I am a engineer by trade. Call it a medical specialist if you want to. But like, that's the kind of knowledge that intrigues me. Like, what are some of the things and ways you can do these things? And AMD's got some awesome products because they got the what was that company they bought that they had the FPGAs? Xilinx.
Xilinx?
Yeah. Or, Xilinx, however you say it.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great, and that's where I think everybody's kind of going. I think FPGAs and like Apple has done this a lot. And I'm gonna pull this up too while I think about it. So, M1 Ultra. So I want to see if I can get this. This is talking about it, but like the M1 Ultra. Why is the M1 Ultra and the M1 Max, for lack of a better word, get such a discussion part of it as to why it's so good? And I want to see.
I saw Linus. Somebody did a video about it not too long ago, I think, that really talking about its power efficiency, which is really interesting.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it was Anthony had done a video about is PC gaming dead, in that like the box one was drawing like 200 watts or under 200 watts, whereas a 12900K itself can draw up to that itself.
That makes sense.
I mean, from a safety environment perspective, yeah, I get it, but I mean, we're not too worried about power efficiency for a tower.
Well, but we are, realistically.
Yeah.
I know we say that, but you can't keep going and pushing the power supply limits on stuff, because as the person that knows it's probably better than most, there's only so much power a circuit breaker can push to a certain area. And unless you go wiring offices up where every breaker breaker gets their own 15 amp breaker, which is absolutely asinine, just so you're aware. Nobody in the world is doing that in an office building. They're not saying every cubicle or every office gets its own dedicated. Realistically, if it's an office and it's got to have like monitors and other things, no office is getting its own dedicated 20 amp breaker. And it happened. So we have to recognize the physical limitations of what a tower can do. Now, for personal computing, that's one thing, but when it comes to an office, I mean, you really have to limit yourselves to where, and this is where that whole conversation of NVIDIA possibly bringing out a 600 watt GPU is just like, whoever buys that is, kind of crazy. And I personally, I don't know the exact specs that are going to come out, but I mean, what I've been reading and what I've been researching and so on and so forth, I feel like at least professionally, we might only see 350, maybe 400 for a professional GPU. But that's more because you have to be able to fit the package into a blower cooler design, which is not a problem. But I mean, that's just realistically. Now, I say all that to say this, which is you've got some people that are designing computers and that have computers that aren't looking at the packages like most people are. So the reason that, but the reason that the M1 system is so interesting is, I'm going to blow this image up if it'll let me, just a little bit, is that this is the way things are going to be in the future, right? You've got your CPU. It's going to have some form of mixed logical processors, whether it be big little design like Intel or ARM and Apple, where you've got like big little cores like we have with or P and E cores as Intel calls them, or whether it's going to be like AMD where you've got a chiplet of big cores and then a chiplet of last gen cores that are a little bit slower on a different chiplet design, possibly, something like that. Where that's what, once again, that's what we hear AMD's talking about doing. But I mean, you can have like an 8-core chiplet, and have 8 cores there, and then have another chiplet that has 16 of the previous generation's cores, or 12 of the previous generation cores, because it's on a newer node. Theoretically, you could see that. And then you've got cache limitations there, tie and all that stuff again. But then you're going to start to get these other things, like these general processing, like the neural engine that Apple has. Why does that neural engine make a difference, Chris? Pretty simple. It is very good at certain things. And then like with the M1 Max and Pro, they have like dedicated H.264 and dedicated encoders built onto the CPU. So what does that even mean? That means that the actual CPU itself has, as a whole, less to do. And anytime you can reduce the load and the need for the CPU, it means that, all right, once again, you're sending it to a different area, sure, but it's designed to do that. And that's where you're going to start seeing like breakouts, because even in a Intel CPU, so let me go look at this. Let me see if I can pull up architecture of Skylake. Skylake, I know it's old, but I want to see if it's got like the diagram, the block diagram for Skylake on here, because this will help you understand where I'm going with this. Yep, here we go. So on the quad core for Skylake, so you've got your GPU side of things over here. You've got your actual bus with its cache on each piece, on each core. And then inside of that, you've got, okay, it's got to do all of these different things, determine all of these different things as it's going through it. So what happens if you break out some of those things that it's supposed to do, some of those little jobs that it does down here in the execution engine? What if you break some of those out and send them over to individualized blocks? I mean, it kind of means you buy yourself a little more processing power, right? You buy yourself a little more bandwidth. to the overall CPU, and it means that the CPU has less to do. But when you overload it with stuff, right now, for instance, what we were just talking about, if I could move that encoder off to another machine, off to another processor, another part of the processor, that would mean that the processor would be more free to do other things that it's doing. And then whenever it needed to do it, it would just move that over that encoding core, just finishes its part, it does, sends it to the encoding core, finishes its part, sends it to the encoding core, saves the actual, and probably I'd go from 100% utilization, well, I'm at 80% utilization, down to 15 to 25 kind of deal. Which, I mean, it's a good thing in my opinion if you do it that way, but it's another thing that could be done. Like I said, a lot of opportunity there, a lot of ways to do things. Just kind of fun. So let's shift gears a little bit. We've been talking about some fun stuff, so I'm going to go back over to the Tom's Hardware main page a little bit, folks. And we are going to go back to the Tom's Hardware main page, the Alder. And there's something else I was looking at here. But first and foremost, can we just take a moment? We got to take a moment to talk about this. Graphics card prices are down another 14%. 15%. Like, you can buy a 3070 Ti for the price of a 6800 XT now. Or lower, even. I mean, things are finally starting to levelize, which is good. I mean, we need that. We definitely need that.
I'm consistently seeing the 3090 for the Win Ultras under 1700.
That's good to see.
Which is
here's my favorite thing of all. So the eBay price for a 3090 Ti, 1387.
For a Ti.
For a 3090 Ti.
Whoa.
The eBay price for a 3090 in general, $1,043.
It's got to be. That's less than like Amazon and Newegg. It must be like.
But they're used cards. They're used cards.
Okay.
But keep that in mind. Like okay, a while back, dude, you couldn't get that close. I mean, you got
that's a
huge.
quarter. That's a third to a quarter what it had been in the past.
Oh no. January 1st eBay price of a 3090. Take a guess.
3,700.
I mean, you're a little high, but you and I probably looked at these more than most people. 2,918. Take a gander at what it is for what it is now, though. I told you it's 1,043.
Yeah.
That is a 64% year-to-date change. That is 64% lower on eBay now. And once again, these were always used cards on eBay or secondhand marketed cards. They might be somebody that bought it at retail and turned around and flipped it, but the retail price right now is $1,459. That's a 3% difference than MSRP. That's cheaper, 3% cheaper than MSRP for 3090s.
Now, Best Buy is still consistently out of stock of the Founders Edition.
Now, what I would bet though, because they say that thing about a lot of stuff, if you actually go to a Best Buy and ask them, sometimes they actually have them. I would tell you that, like, if you were going once a week, you probably could find one once a month if you went there, because they're not posting them online anymore, because you can't buy them online. You have to buy and pick them up and pay for them in store. 3090s.
We would do the Founders Edition if we could get it easier, because that one you can do like multiple stacks.
Yeah. especially like the 3080 Ti Founders Edition. That'd be nice. I'm still kind of confused by the whole. They have the 3080 12 gig now.
That's next.
Even Tom's Hardware is like, yeah, it's $800 on July 1st where you can buy it, and they're like, we don't even know what the MSRP is because there never was one. I mean, the 3080 12 gig is just like a stupid car to me.
Yeah.
Like, why the 3080 didn't have 12 gigs to begin with, I'll never know. I'll never know. Doesn't make any sense because you could have made a 3080 with 12 gigs and it would have made so much more sense than a 38 and the 3090. Wow. When the 3090 had 24 gigs, a 3080 with 12 gigs would have made so much more sense. So much more sense. It would have been the same bus. Like it would have cost you probably less to manufacture because you weren't fusing off the bus to make it work. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know why people buy what they buy these days, but still, it's just kind of funny to me. And then you've got, all of the other things that are coming down in price. I mean, it's fine. Supply chains are finally starting to levelize. Now, there's still some issues here and there that are going to be in the way of us, but I mean, it's as a whole, we're almost back to normal. Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. But
yeah.
All right, so take a minute because while I'm thinking about it. So I'm just trying to think about some of the stuff that we do and you and I talk about and look at. And I'll go ahead and tell people, be prepared for it. I'm working on getting some HX chips laptops in to mess around with. We'll get some kind of a review or wording put together and then put it up on LinkedIn. Have a paper up there for you guys to read into and see more about it. We'll do the same thing. We ought to just start writing some good 2,000 word articles for LinkedIn. We're going to post it. Talking about this kind of stuff. As always, if you're ever interested in talking to us or reaching out to us, you can always email us at itguys@notyourtypicalitguys.com. We'd love to hear questions. Love to hear more about what you guys are working with. We need to put some guests on the calendar for later this year, especially in the fall, as we prepare for some stuff. Find a way to fit some guests in. Maybe set them up, Chris, where we'll alternate it, where it's you doing kind of like the interview and discussion with somebody, and then I'll do one following week, just to keep the content rolling out for you guys. In a fun couple of months and transitions for some of us, and trying to get ready to do more. I do think it'd be a great idea, though. Like I said, if you guys are interested in wanting to be on the show and talk about something, we do use Teams. We can make a Teams call. Drop a chat on LinkedIn. So drop a comment, say you're interested. Send us a note on LinkedIn. We'll happily speak with you and see if there's a way we can do this. Mainly because it's just a good idea. I mean, talking to people and letting them know. One of my favorite things to do is talk about pain points that people have and let them know what the pain points are, and that's a great thing to do with everybody. So if we can take a few minutes to listen to your problems and see if somebody else has them, I think it's always a good thing. And I think a lot of people do have shared experiences. I've at least found that myself. I think people do have shared experiences that they can share with other people that would probably help us, better communicate things. I do, for lack of a better word, sure wish that people had a more pleasant time buying things these days than they probably do. But hey, like I said, we're getting to a place of normalcy, getting to a place where things are getting better. I'm going to do a 5 nanometer order. Wait a second, that I just saw, and that's probably interesting, guys. This is interesting. So it says that TSMC is getting some orders cut for some of their products that they were making because it seems like that there's Demand for client. See, that's okay. Here's the thing, guys. I mean, the pandemic was this is going to lead to a supply shortage again if they're not careful. And I say that because I'm almost positive that it wasn't just certain companies that I know, but a multitude of them. So most companies, and I think I've told you this before, Chris, most companies work on like a rolling basis now. They either have some kind of leasing program with a company where they lease machines for a couple of years and then they constantly trade them out for better machines, or they have like a purchase program where they spend capital dollars to purchase them, and then every 5 to 7 years they purchase new machines as a whole and just capitally spend them. So you and I have kind of talked about that in the past. Well, if you're a Fortune 500 company and the last time you bought a computer was 5 to 7 years ago, 5 to 9 years ago, I don't want to say 9, I want to say 5 to 8 years ago, you probably didn't buy new machines for your teams, like brand new. You probably bought older version machines that you already had in stockpile or in your purchase order stacks. And you didn't buy something new back then because you were waiting to do a refresh of your products when supply chains levelized. I mean, there was a whole monitor panel shortage for a long time. People didn't know about it because it wasn't near as bad as, say, the GPU shortage or the CPU shortage. But there was a time when that was difficult. Well, and it wasn't just that. Motherboards, computers in general, were just tough to buy. Well, now you're looking at it and you're going, okay, so prices are starting to normalize. These big companies are going to start going back out and asking for massive quantities of machines again. You know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 per company, 20,000 machines at minimum per company, maybe more depending on the company. And you're going to get these orders in, and you're going to be right back where we were at the beginning of 2020 when all of a sudden there's a shortage of them. Because they're going to have to process them at the corporation's purchase price. They're not going to be able to upsell that. Like you're not. So who bears the brunt of that problem? Now delivery will be slower for them, but who bears the brunt of that problem is the back end folks. So Joe T, small computer shop like you, Tom, or you, Chris, or a custom computer shop like you, Chris, you'll bear some of that brunt. If nothing else, then because you're the last end on the stick, for lack of a better word, which is kind of crazy. And maybe what this is just like it says in this article here down. It says, more likely is that NVIDIA will launch the new GPU series and AMD will launch the new GPU series, but they won't ship as many models early, and they'll let the partners sell out their existing. So that basically they'll slow roll out, which kind of makes sense. Do you remember this? So let's take the launch time for professional GPUs. So launch time for professional GPUs 2 years ago was September. They launched the RTX 6000 series. The plan, from what I understood, was to launch 5,000. They launched it in September. They announced it in September and launched it in October. You really couldn't buy an RTX 6000 though. But buy, you or I couldn't really buy one until December, January timeframe, right? So realistically, we announce them again this fall. If they announce them again this fall, that's when. But that was the 6000 series. All right, the 5000 series didn't come out, and 4000 series didn't come out until summer of the following year.
Yeah, that was bad.
So I mean, you're still in this same, and hell, the 2000 series didn't come out till last 2021 fall.
Yeah.
I mean, and they were just like in December, they were just now rounding out the rest of the lineup. So I mean, if you and I think about this now, Chris, realistically, that's probably what they're going to do again. High-end products come out first, and maybe this is how it works with GeForce 2, but I doubt that. But realistically, high-end products come out first, might launch this year, might announce this year, might do something this year, I don't know. Availability at the end of the year, the beginning of next. I mean, I'm just looking at it based on the way it worked before. So no insider knowledge here, guys. Don't take this to the bank and try to go buy NVIDIA stock based on these comments, because that's a terrible life decision. I would never tell you to do that. But let's say they do. Let's say they announce it at their GTC in the fall like they did 2 years ago. Realistically, it's still going to be probably November, December before you can buy it 6,000 or better, whatever they end up calling the top of the line. Because I sort of got it to go with the 8,000 again. I'm just going to leave this. I hated that. Leave it at 6,000. Call it a day, guys. You don't need the 8,000. The 8,000 is stupid. Mainly because it was a 6,000 with freaking double the VRAM, which was the dumbest thing ever. Because I talked to a lot of people with Dell and HP and NVIDIA, and they were all pissed because they had to double their certifications and stuff. Didn't make a lick of sense. Say all that to say this though. So let's say that they launch it that way. That's how it goes. That's awesome. Even if it takes that long to get there, I mean, maybe what we're looking at is next year we've got some opportunity for something cool. You know, next year we get the 5,000, 4,000 series announced at GTC again. But realistically, I mean, we're just talking about it the way we're talking about it. It's going to take a while. Nothing's going to come out this year for us professionally. I mean, let me rephrase that. Nothing's going to be like in our hands before the end of the year. I mean, we might be able to order them in November and have them in our hands in January or something like that. That's me personally. Once again, I could be totally wrong, guys. I am not the right person to listen to this. If you are watching this stream and writing checks to companies or putting them, do not do that. I'm a sleuth at deduction. I can go back and analyze things pretty well. And my analysis is just that. That's the way it was before. That's the way it'll be this time. All that being said, though, let's have us a little mini conversation. RDNA 3 comes out. God, how long after RDNA 3 and RDNA 2 launched did we even get the W6800, Chris? I mean, that was a hot minute. So if you see me look over here, it's because I'm actually looking at Chris on screen, so I can see his pretty face and his smile. But I mean, God, I gotta look that up. When did the W6800 launch? A year ago, Chris. The 6800 and the yeah, just over a year ago, 13 months. And RDNA 2 launched in the fall. So we're talking 9 months, right, Chris?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
At 9 months, that's a small child being born, obviously. But if we have to wait another 9 months for RDNA 3 based professional GPUs, that's and see that's even my thing. So AMD, if you're listening, and I hope you are, because your products are pretty solid. I'm a big supporter of that kind of stuff. No, I don't own AMD stocks, so guys. Don't base it on that. I do like the products and some of the stuff that AMD has out here. The one thing I can't stand is this. You gave me a damn RDNA 2 GPU, but you didn't even give me the best chip in it. You tried to make me think that it was going to be competitive with something, out there like the and then you compared it to the Quadro RTX 4000, which launched alongside it. I mean, I feel like you just didn't quite understand the task that you were applying for. And like realistically, like I go back to let me go back to the products on there. Look at graphics. Where's Pro? They don't have the thing on here, I don't think. Yeah. Like this. This is what makes me kind of sad to see. You've got the dual GPU solution W6900XT. The W6900X. You get a 6900XT basically, and you put that into a Pro Series GPU for Apple, but you didn't deal with anything like that on regular PC. That still kind of disappoints me. I don't know about you, Chris, but it definitely still kind of disappoints me. Because that would have been a freaking sweet card. Even the Duo card, like I'd have taken that. Give me a W6800XT Duo. That would have been freaking awesome too. but it requires their proprietary Apple connector, and I'm just like, come on, man, like it would have just been
Yep.
really, really cool. I mean,
Yep.
I feel like, and that's the thing, like you're trying to the 60 that like gaming is a big property for you guys, and ATI, which is who AMD bought to have Radeon. ATI had some really cool things, but like, give me the opportunity here to see something like monumental when it comes to like RDNA and that kind of stuff uh, for everything. Give me this opportunity to actually see a cool graphics card series that shows up for this, because that would, like I said, that would have been a slick little add-in. I mean, it basically, like I said, it was a 6900 XT with the actual 32 gigs of RAM like you had on the other one. It would be freaking awesome. But instead, you gave us 6800, which is not a bad GPU. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm not going to knock it till I use it. But at the same time, it's like you could have given us a little something more. I mean, it's like I said, just a little bit disappointing because you gave us the basic, and you didn't even give us the 6800 XT. You gave us the 6800, which was the card. Which gets back to the point of it was the card nobody was buying for actual gaming, and you gave it to us for workstation. Like that kind of hurt me a little bit. I'm not saying you couldn't do. There's things about it, but it was a little bit of a minor sadness to me. And don't get me wrong, it's a hammer time card. Excellent GPU. But it doesn't stack up again, and it does price wise stack up. I mean, but I'd have paid $3,500. Let me pull that up. So, I'm going to go with our workstation cards because basically everything's in stock again, like we talked about, Chris. So components. Come on. Bonanza sale. I tell you what, man. The big old advertisement for Newegg. I just like Newegg because it's got everything easily visible. So if I go to workstation cards, and I go sold by Newegg because that's the only way I look at stuff. And I sort them from high to low. Like so. What do I get? So I get a 6800, which is barely cheaper than the 9100, which is a 60 gig HBM2 card. But I get it slots in between the 4500 and a 5000, which and the 5500 is not on here right now. Yeah, 6000. They don't have. But even still, a 4500 is actually fairly comparable to a 6800. So it is price performance wise kind of close. Granted, you're getting a much bigger frame buffer, right? But the only thing about that kills me is like, okay, so you get a bigger frame buffer, but you don't get the performance that you have down here. Like, it makes sense, and as I've told this to AMD, these cards make a lot of sense for some of our larger modeling, larger point cloud model modeling, but they don't make sense for anything that's graphically intensive. So we just kind of have to think about it that way. But it is the 4th of July weekend. Everything all being said, I may come back out here in a little while, Chris. It's 9 o'clock on Saturday. You should be closed tomorrow, right? Or not tomorrow, on Monday, right?
We've been closed today, and we'll be closed on Monday.
Well, I think that what we should plan and schedule then is a little bit of not your typical IT guys fun tomorrow and play a little Battlefield together and stream it. What you think about that? I'll check with the rest of the gang here, see if I can't make them work and work it out with us. But yeah, let's try to plan for that for the fans. The fans deserve something cool like that. But yeah, it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday. Sorry. Regular crowd shuffles in. Little tiny dancer. Just kidding. Little piano. Well, Elton John. Which, by the way, Elton John's coming all over the place. I know. I'm sorry. We're talking to each other, guys, at this point. So if you joined the stream, join the stream. This is just being me and Chris, being me and Chris. But yes, we need to get some. We need to get some more fun into the channel. And this is episode 20, by the way. So we have been doing it for a little over a year now. We're having fun with it. We'd love to get some more comments, like I said, some more followers from you guys. If you enjoyed it, enjoy it. If you haven't enjoyed it, tell us why, and maybe we'll think about making it better. Because honestly, Chris and I, we're never gonna change. But I say all that to say this, Chris. It's been a good stream.